This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 172. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Heya.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hello.
So tonight we've got a bunch of things to talk about, and several of you went to Pax West last week.
It's true. Ash, Tam, and I all went to Pax West for one day. It was a lovely, packed day of looking at a whole bunch of video games, and in some cases getting to play some.
I spent most of that in costume.
Oh yeah, same here. So I went as Fred Jones from Scooby-Doo, which is my standard costume. And Tam,
That's where I'm supposed to say looking cool Joker.
We got a lot of looking cool Joker.
Yeah, it's true. I think I've mentioned this elsewhere, but I think that the one that sort of distressed me the most was the 8 or 10-year-old girl who was like, "Looking cool, Joker," and I'm like, "Wait a sec,
You shouldn't be playing this game."
yeah, that was how I knew I was old.
The game in question, for any of our listeners that don't know, Persona 5.
Yes, it was really cool getting pictures of everybody else in Persona 5 costumes, though.
The pairings were all pretty great.
I couldn't get all of them, but I got a lot of them.
It would have been kind of amazing to get everybody all together at once.
Yeah, I was pretty close to getting the entire playable party. I was short 2.
Unfortunately, I did not see any of the rest of the Scooby Gang.
Not this year, anyway.
Have you seen the Scooby Gang before?
So I've seen Velma and Daphne before. I've never seen another Shaggy or another Fred Jones.
I mean, that costume's kind of perfect, though.
I really like it because it is very true to what it looks like on the show. And this is from an era where the outfits on the show are designed to look visually striking and do not actually make sense as an outfit.
Look, ascots are going to make a comeback, just saying.
It's not the ascot, actually. It's the way the white shirt with the blue collar. So what everyone sort of thinks that is a blue collared shirt with a white sweater over top of it, right? That doesn't look right though, because the sweater is a sweater would typically be way too thick, and the entire outfit hugs his body. So
it's a button down, or it's a pullover with a collar.
Is collar. That what it's supposed to be?
That's what I always thought.
That doesn't make sense either.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, no. But it's close-ish. I mean, there are certainly button-down white shirts with off-color collars, which isn't what he's wearing, but I guess it's inspired by that. There's no actual article of clothing that looks like that, though.
No, but a collared shirt with a white turtleneck with the neck rolled down looks very close.
So what all of interest did you see there, apart from the cosplay?
So we talked about how there weren't a lot of new things there. There really weren't a lot of new things there. We got to play a copy of Space Team the App, the board game.
Sounds
that
interesting.
Was fun.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Everyone has a hand of various Space Team majiggers, and you have to pass them to each other so that you can use the majiggers to solve your problems. Similar to, the Space Team app.
Right.
It was pretty neat.
We also played, what was the, nine scrolls?
9 parchments.
9 parchments. Which was a Magicka-alike, which we thought had less griefing, but still has quite a bit of griefing.
It still has friendly fire, but does not actually encourage griefing.
Oh, Magicka encourages griefing. Interesting.
Magicka encourages you to take your teammate's stuff.
I actually liked that game quite a bit.
Me too.
It's by the makers of Trine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was cool. I look forward to giving it more time. Because, like, the PvE aspect of Magicka was not my favorite. I felt like that game was hard enough without griefing your friends. And it was legitimately difficult to not grief your friends in that game. Like, you could be...
Nine Parchments also has that problem.
It's true.
There are spells. Some of them are large beams. Friendly fire is 100% on. So, things happen sometimes.
You're going to straight up kill some of your friends.
But that was fun. That was not an announcement. But that is the first time I've seen that playable.
I continue to like seeing Battle Chef Brigade shaping up. I'm glad that game continues to be developed and continues to look pretty fun.
That's the go battle, then cook what you killed game?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the fantasy cooking show where you've got to fight your own food.
With a Tetris-like cooking game.
You played the demo, right?
I did not.
Oh, I thought you did. I don't know why I thought that.
But yeah, you are trying to get Tetris pieces that will collapse into the spiciest, best food.
Or whatever flavor you happen to need.
Yes.
It's hilarious to me.
It's very fun.
It seems really funny.
So I got to watch a entire monster kill in Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter World? Or
Yeah, Monster Hunter World. That game looks like it has some promise. And
I mean, it's Monster Hunter, except significantly higher fidelity than the last few, which have been on the 3DS.
And or maybe play Dauntless, because it looks like that might come out first.
Like I said, Dauntless needs to come out first, or it's going to instantly die.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. First to market is definitely a thing. Like, prime example, Gigantic.
That's
feel
the thing,
like...
though, Monster Hunter doesn't need to be first to market.
Well, it's going to have an instant...
They have an existing fandom and deeper systems. But, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Ash has kind of been getting me excited for these games because I have been talking a lot about the combat in Horizon Zero Dawn. And I kind of want the combat in Horizon Zero Dawn, but with, like, bigger monsters where I'm fighting them with a group of people.
I mean, that is definitely Monster Hunter. I am tentatively very interested in this new Monster Hunter, but I am deeply concerned that it's going to have unplayable controls, because the last one I played had unplayable controls.
Was that one the first one?
I don't remember. I mean, it was 10 years ago.
So, probably.
Unplayable controls as in, like, it won't let you invert the joystick, or...
Well, I mean, in and above just that, because no, it didn't let me do that either. It had a control scheme that I don't remember what buttons were mapped to what exactly, but I do remember that I had to have like both thumbs on the sticks at all times, but I also needed to be able to hit my face buttons on both sides. So I was doing some like weird hand gymnastics where my ring fingers were covering the shoulder buttons, and my ring fingers were on the shoulder buttons. I had my thumbs on the pads, and then pointer and middle finger on the buttons, and it was intensely uncomfortable.
At this point, I can't even imagine what this would be.
It was awful. It was I couldn't play it for more than 10 minutes without my hands physically hurting, and none of the buttons were remappable. And like, I kind of couldn't get into it as a result.
I didn't play the original PS2 release, which I hear was not actually great. Like, the popular entries were the ones that started on the PSP, and that was well after that original release. And even then, I didn't start playing it until the 3DS entries.
Like, I haven't played it since then. I remember it would have been like 2007, 2008, whichever one was out around then.
I do not know.
But it had like either Game Boy or PSP Sync or something. Anyway, I mean, it's not really thematically my style of game because it's all fantasy and there's no interesting tech to it. But
what do you mean by that?
Like, there's no magic and there's no like lasers or mecha.
There are no mecha, just gun lances.
I never saw the gun lances.
They probably didn't exist in that one.
They might not have.
But gun lances and heavy bow guns are a thing, and they get kind of techy. But that's as much as you get.
Yeah.
I really want someone to like create a massive tutorial explanation of how to get into Monster Hunter. Like this is the way you actually get into Monster Hunter, and it doesn't seem like nonsense.
I guarantee you the internet has your back.
The internet
not
lies.
not so far. Like I've followed some of those, and yeah, no, it's still nonsense. Like
My get into Monster Hunter was play it with somebody else who knows what they're doing. And prior to that, I tried and failed multiple times.
yeah, it's like I bounce pretty hard off of it every time. Like I want to get into it because I think if I ever got indoctrinated, I would like it. But yeah, no, I bounce pretty hard.
I mean, Monster Hunter is one of a fairly large category of games that sound super appealing to me, like from a conceptual standpoint, right up into the point where I realized that I probably have to play with other people to get anything useful out of this. And then I'm done.
Well, you don't, but that's what it took for me to get into it. I don't know. That's a little hard to explain.
I'm definitely interested in giving it a shot.
World seems like it'll be a good opportunity. I mean, also Dauntless is probably a reasonable opportunity because it costs $0.
Yeah, but I'm also fairly sure that Dauntless isn't going to be as good.
It is not likely to be as good. You're correct.
Like, there's a reason that Dauntless has to release first and Monster Hunter does not.
Okay, so why do you think Dauntless will not be as good?
Because they haven't been doing it for more
Creature
than a
design,
decade.
well, that too. Creature design is the primary one. Like, a whole bunch of Monster Hunter monsters are weird and do interesting things because they have, like, a decade worth of them now.
Okay, but I feel like there are some persistent, like, problems with Monster Hunter that we've just talked about, and a fresh set of eyes might help.
It's possible, but from people who have played Dauntless, I don't know that that's... Like, what I've heard from people who have played Dauntless, I'm not sure that it's quite there.
It's going to be very hard for Dauntless to come out of the gate with as much intricacy and depth as Monster Hunter has, just because it's fresh IP.
That's what I was kind of alluding to earlier.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say that they can't do it. It's just a really tall order. And mostly, like, I agree with the statement that it needs to launch first, because once, right
needs
now...
to not be Battleborn.
Yeah.
Well, and right now there's not a great Monster Hunter fix on the PC.
Right.
There's whatever that one game is, and it's okay. Like,
Token exists, and God's Eater exists.
Yeah, God Eater is what I'm thinking. And it's an okay
is probably
game,
a better approximation.
but there's really not a great option.
Yeah.
And at the very least, like, if Dauntless gets to market quickly, Monster Hunter diehards will try it. If it launches too close to when Monster Hunter Worlds is coming out, then they're just probably going to wait for Monster Hunter World. I'm surprised, was Dauntless not at the show?
It was at the show.
Okay.
I didn't feel the need to try to play it again.
Yeah, I failed miserably enough the first time.
That was the other thing I noticed. You can cart in the Monster Hunter demo. I didn't notice anybody failing the quest because too many people carted.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. So maybe they had an idea of what makes a show demo more in line.
Yeah.
I definitely saw a lot of people carting.
Hilariously, the fast travel animation in Monster Hunter Stories is that cart.
That is one weird anime, just saying.
Weird game, too. Came out this past Friday.
And that's on 3DS right now?
Yep.
I'm curious to try it. Like, one of the things that I really like about Horizon Zero Dawn, I did not see happening, which is, like, setting up traps and leading monsters into traps.
Oh, that definitely does happen.
It's definitely a thing you can do that happens.
They didn't do it with that one, I think, because it doesn't make as great a show demo, but, like, the one time I played it was very much, it was very much like, set up this thing.
Pit traps and shock traps exist, and they are... Some quests actually require them because you need to capture the monster and not kill it, which will result in you failing the quest the first time you do it because you will kill it. But traps exist. They are useful, both for control and for captures when they're required.
The funny thing is, like, if I had my druthers, I would never use traps in Horizon Zero Dawn.
I don't really.
Oh man, I definitely do.
I do a lot. It's
I don't
great.
even...
I did until I didn't.
Yeah, that's actually Grace's thing is probably more likely for me. I did until I stopped.
Any other interesting blips from PAX West?
I was kind of surprised this year at how underwhelming the indie block was. Like, I'm used to the indie block being where all of my best of show stuff comes from, and it wasn't this year.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
That was definitely kind of how I felt about PAX South last year. Was the indies were the things I was really interested in.
Yeah,
like Mages of Australia was probably one of the more impressive games at the show.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a thing that I've come to think about with PAX. Like, PAX is really for me to go and hang out with friends and so on. Like, I'm not really going there for like to see new games because there's not usually a lot of announcements there. But the indie shows are the ones where I do.
Is there much of a pen and paper presence at PAX West? And did they have anything interesting over there?
Not really. Like, there's more of a tabletop board games, if anything.
Well, tabletop.
Yeah, there was a couple of things, like...
Fantasy Flight had a lot of stuff.
Fantasy Flight had a lot of stuff.
What are they doing now that isn't Star Wars?
Fallout.
Bethesda. They got Bethesda stuff.
Oh.
Doom. Yeah.
So I know there's a Fallout board game, but what else is in the works?
There's also a Doom board game. I don't think that the only thing we saw was a Fallout board game. I wonder if them getting Bethesda also means that they will eventually make an Elder Scrolls. They will convert
Elder Scrolls Legends.
Well, I was gonna say if they will convert Warhammer Fantasy to Elder Scrolls, the pen and paper game.
That's an idea.
Oh, that would be weird. I'd play it, sure.
I mean, they have this system that they are no longer allowed to print.
I mean, they I guess maybe their version is sufficiently different from the previous versions of Warhammer Fantasy. I don't know. I would have to look at it closely.
Isn't some company making a version of Warhammer Fantasy anyway?
Yes, there is a new Warhammer Fantasy edition coming out. It was announced relatively recently.
I mean, isn't it Games Workshop doing it themselves?
No, they've partnered with somebody. I'm blanking on the name. Cubicle 7.
All right.
I don't know who that is.
I know
They done other things.
The Doctor Who RPG is probably the big thing that they're known for. The Adventures in Time and Space. And then they've got a Middle-earth RPG.
The Middle-earth one is the one I'm familiar with, which I hear is very good. I've never played it, but...
You have to be pretty good to be better than Merp. I tell a lie. Merp was old and chart-ridden. But it still gives me warm fuzzies. But yeah, so I feel like they would have to make so many changes to it to make it sufficiently different that Games Workshop did not come after them with the lawyers, that they'd be better off just starting from scratch.
I was a little sad that I did not see the Star Wars minis game, their upcoming Star Wars minis game, because I'm really interested in seeing what they do with that one.
Did they not have it there, or did you just not have time to look at it?
They didn't have it there. Considering that they appear to be looking to make an even more accessible. It looks like they're trying to make the most accessible minis game possible, which is fitting for Fantasy Flight.
Yeah,
I know I've seen coverage of it, and did they have it at Gamescom?
They've just announced it, and a few places have gotten some like sneak previews.
I just remember seeing some of the miniatures.
But the miniatures look cool. I mean, Fantasy Flight has been doing some great stuff with the Star Wars license lately. I mean, by lately, I mean the last few years.
When was the last time we got Star Wars miniatures?
X-Wing?
Yeah, the X-Wing game.
Well, and the X-Wing game is excellent.
Other than ships.
Oh,
people.
Gosh.
Like the last ones I can remember are the West End Games ones.
Wait,
and
what
they
do you
were
mean?
Kind of horrible sculpts.
Oh.
I mean, that was the mid-90s, so yeah.
There was a more recent set that went with the Saga edition. There was like a Star Wars minis that just in the same boat as the what's this
D&D
called?
minis?
The D&D minis.
Yeah, there was definitely Star Wars minis game.
Oh, right,
in the
right.
same vein, because I played a little bit of that and had a
I
ton
know-
of those laying around.
I know there was the one that had like minis that like shot things at each other. So there was definitely that one. Attack clicks or something like that. That may have also been ships though.
Speaking of stuff that they're doing with Star Wars, the Destiny stuff is great.
That is Star Wars Destiny.
Yeah, Star Wars
card
Destiny.
game. Yeah.
The card game. Oh, sorry, right.
Okay, so I have to tell a story here real quick because like my wife is adorable and she is always looking out for things that you know she thinks I'm into, and like we were at Target when they were doing their Force Friday stuff, and they had a box that was Star Wars Destiny, and she knows I love Star Wars and I love Destiny, and she thought it was some kind of crossover, and she was like, surely that I would want it.
I mean,
It was adorable.
I got that box from PAX, and it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, like I enjoy Star Wars Destiny a lot. I'm super spoiled by our previous game of Ashes, and I think that a game that has starting a game with starting a card game with you can pick your hand is awesome.
Well, it definitely mitigates some of the randomness.
Yeah.
And I guess it also kind of makes you think of front-loaded combos.
I mean, sure, but
It is likely that Star Wars Destiny contains some things that would be front-loaded combos if it had that rule.
yeah. But I think it mitigates a lot of frustration, or a lot of potential frustration out of the game, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I mean, the game that we played, as much as I liked the mechanics, it was incredibly frustrating because it was just like, well, you got the stuff you needed, and I didn't, so I lose. And like that experience could have been mitigated very heavily by, we start with like, I didn't get useful upgrades until it was too late to do anything with them. But I also I feel like Star Wars Destiny manages to accomplish what the WoW card game felt like it was trying to accomplish, only it actually succeeds, which I think is really cool.
I feel like WoW card game is just this weird place where it sold a lot of cards, but nobody was actually buying it to play the game.
I mean, the WoW card game had one of the coolest card game mechanics I'd ever seen, and nobody else has done, as far as I can tell. The card game raid decks were amazingly fun.
I mean, to some extent, I guess that's what Arch Enemy is in Magic the Gathering as well. It's a pre-built raid deck thing.
Yeah.
I've never heard that or seen it advertised anywhere.
Really? Yeah, it's like a special format where like one player plays with a giant oversized deck.
Somebody is the dragon.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they had really, really cool one in the WoW card game.
So Arch Enemy is designed to be played as a board game where you've got like a dragon basically, and then or some other big bad creature, and
The first one
a
was
bunch
Nicobolas,
of
though, I think.
Well, Nicobolas is out right now.
Ah,
But I thought there was one before that, or maybe two before that. But, you know, basically you've got one, like a monster deck, and then you have a bunch of monocolor defender decks, or whatever you want to call them. I don't know what the actual term is, but you basically all try and band together to take down the big bad.
Yeah. So it's all pre-built deck.
It's all pre-built, but you could play with your own deck against, but it does come with little pre-builds.
Oh, does it come with pre-builds?
Or at least Nicobolas does.
the old one did too.
But I think in theory you could basically do the same concept with, you know, non-pre-builds.
Oh, right. I think it's one of those things where you can use the pre-builds, or you can bring your own decks.
I guess the new one is much stronger themed than the original one was.
Is it more themed around Nicobolas killing the Gatewatch?
I mean, that is the theme of the new one, yes. The old one was kind of generic.
Maybe Nicobolas should start up doing stupid schemes and actually just kill the Gatewatch.
What kind of a villain would he be then?
I mean, I feel like killing the Gatewatch is probably a good idea because I'm kind of getting tired of them. Like,
Well,
they've
too
been
bad,
around
two new
for a
Jace
really
cards
long
next
time.
on.
I know.
I mean, yeah, they've got all of these Jace cards. How would they release them?
They pre-printed Jace cards for years, and now they have to build sets for them.
The new Jace can give you more Jaces.
It's the Jaciest Jace. Like, every time I see Jace, I kind of picture Johnny Cage in my head.
What?
I'm not sure how that happened.
I'm
Because
also not sure how that happened.
like Jace is the smarmy. I don't know. Like, he's always cheesing it up on his shots.
He does seem to, have been mind wiped and maybe is no longer a psychic mage. So, mission accomplished, maybe?
Well,
Except for the part where he's not dead.
He's
I
not
was gonna
dead.
say, they're still making cards of him, so...
Maybe we'll get another Jace the Mind Sculpt there.
So instead of being a telepath, I think so Jace is known for telepathy and illusion, and so now he's just illusion.
Okay, anything else from PAX before we move on?
Don't think so.
So, the big thing that I have been doing this week is I have been playing Destiny for the PS4, because...
We're all shocked.
You jerk.
I am crazy and am going to play it on 2 different platforms. Holy shit, it's a good game. Like, it feels very much like this is really what they should have released all along.
So you've sent me a bunch of really hand-wringy, I don't think you're gonna like this game messages.
I still am not sure if you are. Like, I am concerned it may be too Destiny for you. Like, because in a lot of our conversations, you would like Destiny if it was basically not being Destiny. I mean, it's still a, shooting people with space guns sort of game.
I mean, everything that I have heard about it thus far and seen from the demo is that it's basically exactly Destiny, except better in everything except for the shaders.
It's the most Destiny-ish Destiny ever. Like, it's everything's cranked to 11.
I mean, it's probably worth noting that I did play the original Destiny through all of what could be charitably called the campaign.
So I will say, like, the campaign in Destiny 2 is really good. I enjoyed it greatly. It's probably about 3 times as long as the original Destiny was, maybe 4 times as long. I don't know. Like, there was a point at which, like, I was doing all sorts of miscellaneous stuff and not doing story quests, so I don't know how much of that time was actually story versus whatever, but
I mean, I'm liking these words that you're saying.
There's
story?
lots of...
That there is story?
Oh, there's tons of story. Like, there's... So, if you remember in the first game, there were patrol missions, and those still exist to some extent. I mean, the planets are patrol
You sound upset
zones.
about that.
No, I mean, I like patrols. I mean,
exactly.
I'm actually really happy about patrols, but like, the planets themselves are basically what used to be patrol zones. They are extremely large and extremely detailed, but
I'm liking these words that you're saying.
They're still a Destiny patrol zone, because basically they're still a giant loop. I mean, they're not exactly a loop, but now that I've played with it a lot, I can see the patterns of, oh yeah, no, these zones connect this way and these zones connect this way. And in theory, if I were on a Sparrow, I could drive around the whole thing in a loop. And that's not a bad thing.
Do you not have a Sparrow?
You don't get a Sparrow until you finish the campaign.
Aww.
So you're hoofing it a lot, but these zones have waypoints, for lack of a better term, that you can transmat to, so you can bounce around the map at will. It doesn't cost anything. It just, you've got like a summoning animation, basically. You can bring up the map at any point. There is a map.
About time.
Again, I'm liking these words that you're saying.
You can go to orbit, but you can open the director at any point and click into a planet and click into a waypoint and teleport straight to that waypoint. And you will technically go to orbit and have a loading screen, but you didn't have to go to orbit first and then go to a planet. And
you didn't have to go through 2 loading screens just to get to a planet.
Right. So that's a really cool thing that changed. Engrams are few and far between, because when you pick up a green or a blue, it just automatically gets decrypted, so you can use it right there. You don't have to keep going back to town to decrypt engrams.
Good.
Legendary and exotics, you still have to decrypt, but so far they're kind of few and far between. And even in the original Destiny, getting legendary engrams was kind of a rare thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that's changed is they've changed the way that their algorithm works for determining what the equivalent light level of the next engram you decrypt is. And technically it's no longer light, it's just called power. But so they search your bank and your bags and what you currently have equipped, and they basically factor what the best item for every slot is possible that you have when
So no longer cheating the algorithm.
Right. Well, you don't have to...
The way it should always have been.
Right, you don't have to randomly put on stuff that you
crap.
don't care about, yeah.
Yeah, so you can use that gun that you really like that's a couple levels lower than you should have, because it's not gimping you, because every single time you hit a new engram, you get the max benefit.
Is that why I never got any good drops?
Yes.
Probably.
You have to be equipped the highest
because I
light
never
level
used.
possible.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's the way it always worked. You need to, before you do any decrypts, you need to put on your highest level gear, or that was the Destiny 1 way.
Yeah, because it would decrypt as like slightly higher than your current light level. So if you were...
There are a lot of things that needed work in Destiny.
So if you forgot to unequip a weapon that you were doing research on before you decrypted a
Yep.
whole bunch of engrams, too bad.
Too bad.
I never did this twice.
No, I never did either.
I think I have a better understanding of why my luck in Destiny seemed so terrible and why I kept using crappy weapons, because I couldn't get better versions of them.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens. Or
Wow.
it happened, past tense, because they fixed that. Like, honestly, Destiny 2 is this case of them fixing a lot of problems from Destiny 1. Like, these are all things that were issues in Destiny 1, and now they've got fixes for them, and it just works. Like, it's better.
Basically, if this was a PC game, like, it would just be a big expansion / patch, whatever, to Destiny, probably.
I mean,
Well, in truth, this is Destiny 2.0. Like, for lack of a better term, it's Destiny 2.0.
Yeah, it's not a sequel, it's an upgrade.
So this is sort of getting to what I was seeing. I've been, like, not playing this, but I've been seeing people tweet about it. And every time I see people tweet about it, or, like, to show off a weapon or something, I cannot for the life of me tell the fact that they are playing Destiny 2 versus Destiny 1.
Everything is slightly prettier, and the systems work better, and some of the guns are functionally different. But yeah, I mean, this is functionally Destiny 2.0, and I'm okay with that. I don't know, like, at one point they talked about the reasons why they needed to go to Destiny 2.0 was that there were problems with the engine that made generation of content difficult.
I
think that was an excuse, but
I
believe it in that.
I mean, probably true.
Most of what we got were
reskins
of existing content. Like in Destiny, like, most of what we got, the actual number of new zones of any sort were tiny compared to the number of new modes for zones. But that said, like, I am perfectly fine. Like, there are people that are supremely underwhelmed by this game, and I get it. I mean, if you expected it to be vastly different, it is not probably going to be a happy place. But it's like a bug-fixed, patch, feature-rich version of the original game. Because there's all these little systems that they put in that are really cool. Like, there are these things called lost sectors, which is a weird name for what it is, but it's basically like a mini dungeon that happens out in the world. And there is a symbol that scouts from before had marked up to note special features. And so you'll see one of these maybe by the road. They're always in a obvious place, and it tells you that, oh, look around, there's probably an entrance to a lost sector somewhere around here. And some of them are just literally, oh, go to the cave behind that symbol. And others are like, you've got to wind around this path and like duck under some stuff. And now you're down inside this cave system that you didn't even see originally. And when you do it, you've got like it's basically like a lair of mobs. So it'll be like a lair of Fallen, or a lair of Taken, or like a Cabal secret base or something like that. And you take out a bunch of mobs, you fight a boss, and he drops a key to a chest, and there's a loot chest at the end of the cave, and it gives like currency for the planet and gear, just straight up gear, and has a rare chance of giving you like a legendary or an exotic engram. And these are scattered throughout the world, and you can run them multiple times. It's not like you're limited just to run at the one time. And I don't know if you remember the gold chests from Destiny 1, where there were like 5 per planet.
Yeah.
And they were hidden.
Oh, yeah. And they weren't remotely worth looking for.
No, they were horrible. They weren't remotely worth looking for, but they've basically rebooted that system, and now instead of giving fixed amounts of gear or like fixed rewards, they give level equivalent rewards, and there's tons of them. And whenever you've looted one, now that becomes a potential spawn point for just a normal loot chest. Loot chests are actually worth getting now. They're not just glimmer. I've gotten an exotic engram from a loot chest.
That's definitely an improvement.
And
yeah, but your luck is not necessarily an indication of how it goes for anybody else.
This is true, but they're hidden around, and they're way more plentiful feeling than previously. Right now there are no factions like the tower factions, because obviously the tower was exploded. But every planet has basically like an NPC that you deal with, and that NPC will take these tokens that you get for doing stuff on the planet, and like literally anything you do on the planet.
Can they introduce these characters to you?
Yes, they're actual characters. They have missions. They have story, like they're in the story on the planet. But then after you've done the planet story, there are these things called adventures, which are little micro stories that happen on the planet that explain bits and pieces of the world. Like I just did one today that explains a whole bunch of how the Cabal hierarchy works while, doing research for one of these NPCs. And, there's also like, I don't know if you remember like spin metal and helium clusters or helium canisters or whatever those were, the various quote unquote crafting materials on the planet.
Sure.
They still have those, but they're now just faction items. So the NPC on a planet will take those and give you his personal faction, which is basically like an XP bar. And once it's full, he gives you a loot package, which is usually 2 legendaries and some shaders or a gun mod or something like that. And those come really quickly. Like, I think it takes about 15 of these tokens. And sometimes you'll open a chest and they'll give you 3 tokens at once. So that's been like my primary source of getting new gear lately, is just sitting on a planet and working on these tokens that then get turned into gear for me whenever I turn them back in at the vendor. That's another thing worth talking about. Guns are guns. There are no more rolls on guns. Like, if you get a gun,
the random stats and abilities are no longer actually random. They are predetermined. So a particular model of gun will always have the same stuff.
Right. So if you get a legendary weapon, it's no longer that you need to keep running something over and over and over and hoping for the rare chance of getting a decent Grasp of Malak. Grasp of Malak has predetermined stats.
Nice.
There is no such thing as a bad Grasp of Malak.
Right, and now there are these things called weapon and armor mods that you can get in a bunch of different ways, and those give your weapons a modifier of your choice. So you can take a weapon that you like, except for one thing, and then add a mod to it to maybe make the stability higher, or make the range longer, or, you know, crank up the impact. Or, like on energy weapons, like say you've got a scout rifle that you really like, and it's solar, but everything else you have is also solar, and you'd rather it not be solar. You can drop a mod in it and change it from solar to void or to arc or whatever. You can change the damage type of the weapon. Now, I mean, it would be cost prohibitive for you to do this regularly, but it is a thing you can do now.
Does that mean you're giving up a potential effectiveness upgrade to do that?
No. One of the mods that's on all energy weapons is their damage type. So basically, they have a normal mod slot and a damage type slot. Kinetic weapons have one that's called kinetic damage that's fixed, and you can't ever change that one. So basically, the damage type of a weapon is independent of the other modding options. Armor is similar. There's basically like heavy armor, which gives you better damage absorption stats. There is mobile armor, which makes you move faster. And there is, God, what's the last one?
Give you more recovery?
Recovery, yeah. Recovery armor. So an armor will be of that type. And then from there, you can tweak out like whether or not it makes your weapons load faster, or maybe it makes your grenades charge faster. And those are all just mods that you can add in after the fact. So basically, like, there's way less randomness in weapons and armor, and to some extent, this also means, like, I'm not having the inventory problems that I had in Destiny 1, where I was holding on to a bunch of copies of the same weapon because I wasn't quite sure which one I liked the best. Like, if I have that weapon, period, then I don't really need another copy. So I just keep saving the higher light version. The infusion system is acting a little weird, so I think it's maybe a little buggy, but they removed the whole weapon materials thing, and now you can infuse legendary or exotics, and breaking down an exotic or a legendary gives you legendary shards, and it takes one legendary shard to infuse.
What does infusion do?
So infusion is a system that didn't exist when you were playing, where, say, you have a power level 300 item and a 350 item drop, but you'd really rather use your original 300 weapon, so you can eat the 350 item basically and make the gun you like be 350.
Got it.
Which is great because random loot.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Man, I feel like I've just rattled a ton of stuff off. Patrols do exist. You just don't get to unlock them until you've beat the main quest, like the main storyline. There's an overwhelming amount of stuff that just suddenly shows up when you make it through the original story.
So tell me about shaders.
So
yeah, what's going on with that?
So shaders, yeah, like shaders were a thing that you got that were kind of unique, and they were rare enough that when you got them, you took note that you got a new shader, and you could then all of a sudden make your armor that shader,
like bright, eye-watering fluorescent green.
Yeah,
something,
whatever. With this, like, so all the while they were promoting this game, they talked about all the granularity they were adding in with shaders, and it all sounded amazing until like seconds into the game, people started noticing, what? Shaders are single-use items now?
What?
Yes.
Yeah, because in the original game, once you have a shader, you have that shader. It's unlocked. You have it forever. Like, you can destroy it, and then you can go get another copy of it whenever you want.
So Luke Smith, did a Twitter post basically saying that,
he did not know how to sell this thing.
No, he didn't know how to sell it. He said basically, ease up, because like once you hit 20, you start getting shader drops way more often.
That's not.
I have been 20 for like 2 days now, and I've been doing lots of stuff. And to be fair, I am kind of drowning in shaders at the moment. Like,
are you drowning in shaders you actually want?
There are some that I would want. Basically, every planet has certain shaders that'll drop, and the biggest place that I'm finding them is just loot boxes.
But like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to be drowning in shaders. Like, even if I'm constantly drowning in them, that's still not what I want. Like, the whole beauty of the original system was that once I have one that I like, then I never have to worry about it again. Like, I can swap out, and I know I can always swap back without having to worry.
It also means things like the recruiter friend shader, which you only get once, is more problematic.
So the weird thing about that is there are some of these that are unlimited use, not shaders that I've found so far, but like the ship system is weird too. Like, there's a transmat effect on your ship, which is like what it looks like when you teleport into an area. And I got one called the Veteran Transmat Effect, and these normally work just like shaders. They're single-use items that you basically put it on a ship, and that's the only time you can do it. But I've got this Veteran one that I can use indefinitely, so I'm wondering if at some point they will add unlimited use shaders, because, even though it's a shader and a transmat effect, they're in the same storage, and they're functionally working the same, except for that this one thing is unlimited.
But they want people to go run raids and things over and over to get the shaders they want.
But running
no
raids
one
for
wants
consumable
to do this.
shaders sounds like the worst thing ever.
Yes.
Nobody wants to do this thing. Like, in all fairness, no one wants to do this thing. Like, it is hard enough in World of Warcraft to
I want to run a raid
people
to get things that I can then use forever.
Yeah.
Or at least a considerable period of time.
Yeah, well, like even if it's a cosmetic thing that I can use forever. That, I mean, running raids for transmogs, is a thing in WoW.
That's totally a thing. And
it's hard to get the people sometimes to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they wanted to split the difference, like, I think I could even get behind the idea, although I don't like it as much as the original implementation, of saying, okay, you need one for each slot, since you're independently coloring each slot of your gear now, which is a very cool upgrade. Like, sure, I will try to run the raid multiple times so that I can color each slot, but don't make me have to go back forever if I ever decide, oh, well, I want to see what this holiday pink hat looks like, and now I can't go back to what I liked because it was one-time use.
Yeah, because even if it was you needed a separate one for each slot, there's still a point where you're done. You've gotten one for each slot, and now you have them forever.
Well,
but
and the problem is
the
biggest problem is like, okay, so were it like World of Warcraft, where content trivializes, that would be one thing. But
still a bad thing.
Content never trivialized in Destiny 1.
It definitely did not.
It got easier, but it was still a couple-hour ordeal to go run an old raid. So, yeah, no, that's asking a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me at this point because I have plenty of shader options. It's just less than ideal.
Man, I bet that changes by the time the PC version releases, and I'm going to be really excited about that.
The amount of rioting over this one point.
There's been a lot of rioting.
Assuming for whatever reason they wanted to split the difference, and they, for who knows what reason, probably to set up a cash shop.
That's exactly the reason.
Exactly.
We already know that's the reason.
So, assuming that they want to do that so they can set up the cash shop, why not take a page from Guild Wars 2's book and say, okay, when you get a shader, you have it forever. But to apply the shader, you need to spend this resource, which you can drop or buy from the store.
Yeah.
Like, that's annoying, but it's not enraging.
Right. And that's the problem is you there are these things called bright engrams that come from Tess Eververse or whatever.
Right, the cash shop.
This is the cash shop, yeah. And they're a really big source of these shaders. Now they do have a system in that's a little bit better than previously. Like, so previously they've had loot boxes in for a long time. But previously, like, you had 3 that you could earn a week, and they were tied to various activities. So, like, you got one from PvP, you got one from running a strike, and you got one from, I don't remember, like, running the heroic story or heroic story for the week.
Yeah, one from the story thing. Yeah.
Now, so back in Destiny 1, you still had an XP bar once you hit the level cap. And whenever you filled it, you would get like some strange coins and some motes of light. Now, whenever you fill your XP bar, you get a bright engram. And I have gotten, I think, 7 bright engrams since dinging 20. So they go pretty quickly. But that said, like, a lot of the shaders I'm getting are coming from these things. Like, a lot are coming from the planets, but another lot are coming from, these Eververse packages. I mean, so I don't know. Like, it's annoying, but on some level it's less annoying than some cash shops because there is a pretty easy way to get them just by applying an amount of time to going and doing stuff. Probably my favorite feature are the planetary events. And they work largely like they did before, where events will happen, but this time you can actually see them on your map. And it'll give you a timer of, like, this event's going to spawn in 5 minutes. So you can make your way over there if you care to do it. But all of these events have some kind of trigger to turn them into heroic events, where they, drop considerably better loot, and you have bosses that you fight, and the bosses themselves have a chance to drop loot. And they're all like, while doing this event, you need to do this one thing. So the least spoilery way that I can explain this is, like, there's an event where this thing is going on, and every so often a ship flies in and bombards the players. And if you manage to kill the ship, it triggers the heroic version of the quest, or the heroic version of the event. So, like, everything gets cranked up. The mobs that start spawning are now yellow bars instead of red bars. And you've got a boss or 2 to contend with. And they are super fun. Like, a lot of my time roaming around the planet has been doing these random events that are happening. Because usually you can finish one up and then roll to the next one. And on some level it feels very Guild Warsy, where you're rolling from event to event. The light grind or power grind doesn't feel that bad. Right now the theoretical max that you can hit is 300, and then when the raid opens in like another week, it'll go up to 350. And right now I'm at 250 light. Getting to 200 is super easy. Getting past that becomes progressively slower, but I still feel like I'm progressing reasonably, especially considering this game just came out Wednesday.
So how much time have you sunk into it?
God, I don't know. I don't think there's a way to tell on PlayStation. A lot. I've played a little bit in the mornings, probably about an hour in the morning, and then from whenever I get home until when I crash around 10-ish. And then Friday afternoon, I didn't have any meetings, so I took the afternoon off. And I played all afternoon until my wife got home about 8 o'clock.
So you have played a lot of this game.
And then I played most of Saturday, or most of the day today. Like, I played quite a bit today. So yeah, no, I put in a lot of hours. And were I not podcasting, I would be playing it right now. And, like, the big thing that I'm digging about it is, like, I'm going to definitely know what I should have done and what I shouldn't have done for when the PC release happens.
I'm a little worried about that because I will not have played the PlayStation version.
Like, I've done everything wrong at this point, and I'm still 250. Like, I mean, it's like it hasn't actually hurt me. I question as to whether or not there is really an optimal way to do this, because like a lot of the people are talking about you should do this or you shouldn't do this until you hit such and such light level. And
let me tell you how to optimize the fun out of your game.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wrote one of those posts on my blog, and it's like one of the most popular posts on the blog. And I absolutely did that when I played my Xbox One character. And sure enough, I went up in light really quickly. But it was less enjoyable. Like, it was the thrill of discovery was less if I, held on to things. And to some extent, you can't do that in this game. Because right or wrong, when you pick up an Engram, the level of gear that it will drop is locked at that moment.
I mentioned how amazing that change is.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's probably for the best.
You really should go ahead and decode that legendary Engram or exotic Engram. Because
I really wonder if I'm going to just feel better about my drops in this game. Considering that one of the things that really frustrated me was how terrible my drops always felt and how behind my gear always felt.
So one of the things that's really cool that I have to give them a lot of credit for is there are 3 points in the story where you're awarded an exotic, and they do
the very first mission.
No.
But you don't get to keep that one?
You don't get to keep that weapon.
That's too bad.
That's different. Those are still available, but so basically they do the World of Warcraft thing where they present you with 3 options, and all of those items are obtainable otherwise, but you get to choose which of these 3 exotics are going to fit your playstyle the best. I mean, I didn't ever feel like I was hurting for weapons while leveling, because I either was getting lots and lots of drops on the planets, or like these little side quests. They also reward blue gear or green gear or whatever the equivalent gear is for your current power level. There were clear points where I went from having nothing but white gear to starting to get nothing but green gear to nothing but blue gear, and it was like I hit a certain plateau and then all of a sudden I started getting significantly better drops. But even when I was using like the white items, they didn't feel generic like they did in Destiny 1. Mostly because they felt like they were like less complicated versions of weapons I was already used to. Like it felt like the weapons and gear drew heavily on the things that worked in Destiny 1 and the things that didn't work in Destiny 1. And Tam, for your reference, I have 2 scout rifles that will one-shot mobs.
Oh, good. So they didn't, that isn't just
thing.
like a flat change to the way that weapon works.
No, you can get high impact. There's basically high impact frame weapons, which is a type of weapon frame, and those things, for the most part, will, like, especially with the scout rifle, will, if you hit a headshot, it'll one to the head, 2 to the body. Like, one of them is like a bolt action rifle looking thing that I've got, and another one is a weird energy gun looking thing.
Weird energy gun looking thing appeals to me from an aesthetics perspective.
I feel like you're gonna be all about Omelon Weapon Foundry.
I mean, maybe. I don't know what that is, but
Omelon is like this high-tech liquid, like, fuel cell weapon things. Anyway, it's really good. I'm looking forward to the PC release. I'm hoping it's not too Destiny for you, Tam.
I'm also looking forward to the PC release.
At this point, it's a little over a month away. Like, there's a lot of things that annoy me with a controller that are going to be nice because I can bind specific keys to do them. Because, like opening the director, which is the map, you have to push and hold the touchpad on a PS4 controller.
Why would you?
Right.
I mean, they're out of options.
What was wrong with pushing it once?
Well, pushing it once brings up your ghost, which is still a thing you might want to do, especially if you're entering a cave where there's no light, to at least find, like, once you get in, the ghost automatically comes on, but there's been a couple times I've used it to help during that transition period. It's also still you tap it and you hold square to summon your speeder. But yeah, so like that's an annoying key press whenever I do it. So I'll just bind it to a key. I'll probably bind it to M. Hell, it may already be bound to M on the PC.
It's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting because my experience with the PC, like I was pretty ambivalent after playing the PS4 beta, but playing the PC beta, I was instantly sold.
I loved both. Like the PC felt really good though. So I know another thing that happened this week is we got a guild hall in Guild Wars 2.
Hooray!
This was
The game about guilds. We finally have a guild hall.
The title is definitely a bit of an artifact title at this point.
Kind of is.
I mean, it's a game about guilds, and their guild content is pretty sweet, though.
It's true.
It's too bad we're not big enough to really see a lot of it.
I mean, it definitely feels like a problem when doing the guild quests.
Oh,
I mean,
they're very tuned towards like big mega
15
guilds.
players. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that they're tuned to like 20 to 30 players.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's
Well, the small ones seem perfect. It's just that that's only one of the 3 we have available.
Yeah, we only get one of those a week.
Yeah, I feel like there's some. I don't know. I wish we could have slots per size rather than a size. Like we've got 2 slots that we're doing nothing with. The slots for like guild events that we can do to get guild currency, which we need to build stuff for our stuff.
Yeah, I mean we'll get another easy slot, which is the one that needs 5 people for when we hit, I think, guild level 10, which
shouldn't be too long, but still
another week or 2 maybe. But yeah.
So do you have to be in the guild to help people do these things?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that once you've started the thing, like other people could pitch in and like help you kill, if it's something that isn't instanced. The instant stuff, I don't know.
I'm kind of surprised there's not like an alliance of guilds or something for smaller guilds to band together and, help do these things together.
Because I know I saw people, because I went and, looked around a little just to see what our options were. And I did see people talking about, if you have a guild member who is also a member of another larger guild, they could like get their guild, their larger guild to help out with like guild rushes and that sort of thing. Because you can be in up to 5 guilds.
5 guilds.
Yeah. I know on the hunts, like random people were helping out while we were doing stuff.
Yeah. I think anything that's like out just in the regular world, other people that are, that happen to be there can pitch in.
So then maybe the scavenger hunt is the only one that actually requires you to be in the guild?
There are also some instance missions.
Yeah. The one we have in our hard slot, the guild challenge, is an instance thing, I think.
It's absolutely like we opened up a whole different game though when we got the guild hall.
Yeah. I mean, the guild hall is huge. I think it's bigger than the dimension we had in Rift.
Oh,
which
absolutely.
Up till now was the biggest guild area I had ever seen in a game. It's just massive, and I'm pretty sure it can get bigger.
Yeah, there's a thing that's like, oh hey, did you want to make this huge space even huger?
I don't think we can actually make it bigger, but we can fill it with more stuff.
Once we hit level 40, one of the options from the notary is to open up an unexplored area of the guild hall or something. Yes.
Yes.
It's incredibly expensive. One of the things you need for it are 777 orange fortune things, Essence of Luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, and then there's another one of those at an even higher level.
I kind of want to get in a guild hall that's fully expanded just to see what the hell they look like. I mean,
honestly, I don't. I want to be surprised just as more and more stuff shows up at our guild hall because it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like we Indiana Jonesed our way into some ruins and have turned that into our base of operations.
Yeah, because this isn't a game where you just save up some money and buy a guild hall, and now you've got a guild hall.
I mean, we also did those things.
You do have a guild hall. You do save up some money and you buy a guild hall, and at that point, you have access to a guild hall,
which is overrun with monsters,
and you have to drive them out.
Yeah,
and that's
just
what we finally successfully did.
Like the first time we did it, like it was really painful. But when we had enough people, it
really
seemed
cool.
Largely reasonable. Sort of makes me wish we had been better at like, doing our scavenger hunt every week for a while.
So we'd have favor saved up. Yeah. We didn't know.
Was the scavenger hunt something we could always do?
Yes.
Yep.
Available to us for quite some time.
Yeah, because we had to have some favor to open up the guild hall.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when we did that, we're like, oh, we get worlds for the scavenger hunt. This is more than enough that we need to open up the guild hall.
Well, it was like 3 times as much as we needed to open up a guild hall.
Yep.
Little did we know that everything from that point on is going to be favor locked. And also just like the sheer amount of crafting materials that we're having to gather to build each new phase.
It's pretty amazing.
That's a little ridiculous, quite frankly.
Like honestly, at this point, we've kind of all emptied out our material storage, and it's going to get a lot slower.
There's definitely some stuff.
I mean, we shot up to 5.5 in like a 2-day span.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we built a tavern and a mine, and put some upgrades on those, and then we ran out of favor. But yeah, having that open just that makes me extra excited about the game. Just having that is something to work on and slowly improve over time.
It's really, really cool.
Well, and it's really handy too, because like now you can go to the guild tab and go to the guild hall at any point and return right back to where you were in the world. And now that we at least have a vendor in there.
Yeah, a vendor and an armor repair.
Like that's super useful just to have a place that you can pop to really quickly.
And I assume at some point we will be able to unlock like crafting stations in there.
And a bank and a market board and so yeah, it'll continue to get more and more useful. Because that's honestly like one of my favorite things about, player housing as a whole or guild housing. The place that I had experienced it the most was in EverQuest 2. And it had an extremely robust guild housing system. And you could basically recreate everything in your guild hall that you would need to go to a town for. And sure, that took people out of capital cities, but it ended up creating like these little guild-only capital cities where you were constantly seeing the other members of your guild because everybody was checking in and out of the guild hall. Like, if you needed to craft, you went back to the guild hall. If you needed to sell stuff on the market board, you went back to the guild hall. So it created a situation kind of like our house in Final Fantasy XIV where there was always someone at the guild hall.
Yeah.
And that, while that hurts some of the open world aspect, that does amazing things for the continuity of just a social guild. Because you're constantly seeing people. Like, earlier this evening, while we've been podcasting, I'm doing something, and next thing I know, I see Thalen, and like that will never cease to be like a magical moment of seeing somebody in the world.
Yeah, when the world is that big, it's a really cool feeling. It's like, this is our space. We're working on building up this space, and there's reasons for us to go here and use it. Like, it's going to be awesome once we actually unlock some of the crafting related stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
And I guess this only went in with Heart of Thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah, because both of the 2 guild hall options are in Heart of Thorns zones.
I've seen the other one, and it looks vastly different.
Yeah, and I guess they're going to add another space in Path of Fire.
Sort of what they look like before we picked one.
Ooh, they're adding one in Path of Fire?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how does it even work? I know you can unlock the other one.
Yeah, if you decide to, I don't know what you have to do to switch, but all of your improvements, like, and decorations and stuff come with you to the new guild hall, so you don't lose progression.
Okay, that's a good touch. I mean, it's not a surprising touch, but it's a good touch.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say the other one looks vastly different. Like, I'm in a guild of a bunch of bloggers, and they've been plugging away at their guild hall for a very, very long time, and like their tavern looks totally different. And it's not just that I'm sure it's higher progressed than ours, but it just functionally looks different.
Our tavern is actually half finished, so
yeah, I mean, it's basically a tent.
We have another one to go before we actually
have
finish
a proper
the tavern. Yes.
unlocking the guild hall definitely felt like, oh, this is the true end game here.
Yeah, it gives a sense of purpose that's a really good feeling, because like in a game without gear progression, much as I like that gear progression isn't quite so much of a thing, it also means that you're sometimes like, well, why am I doing stuff? What's the point of me playing right now?
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the guild hall makes literally anything I decide to do feel worthwhile.
Like even, if you're going out hunting monsters, like the big meta event ending bosses, the really big ones, like can have trophy things that drop from them that turn into guild decorations. And I'm gonna guess that, bosses at the end of dungeons and raids, at least some of them have that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also just that in a game full of many, many ridiculous grinds, this is the ridiculous grind that you do together with your guild.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was crazy the night we were, all kind of going off in our own little directions, saying like, I've got ingots covered, Zibit got wood, okay.
Turns out I have a ton of sand. Who knew?
It started to feel a little like a settler's game.
Like, oh, that's why I've been saving that for all this time.
Well,
it has a purpose?
Like the Watchworks sprockets thing, we'd have been screwed if it weren't for my pick.
Yeah, because we just had a whole bunch of them.
So now that I know that it's a needed thing, I went ahead and bought one of the Laurel items. It's the Watchwork thing for your home instance. And the funny thing about that is it's like this mechanical tower that you mine. And if you're doing so with the pick, you can also proc bonus sprockets per mine.
Nice.
Okay, so I guess that's a way that's still in the game to be able to get sprockets then. That's good.
Yeah, there's a handful of those home instance items that are on the Laurel vendor.
I should get a bunch of them. I have some fun stuff in my home instance, including a found bandit chest, which made me chuckle.
Yeah, they're kind of spendy on the money though.
Oh, okay.
Because they take gold in addition to laurels. Which is why, like, there's some that I could have gotten, but I absolutely didn't get because I didn't want to spend any more money. But you can get like the Halloween seasonal one and things like that.
I really, really wouldn't get any Halloween anything.
No, it's nonsense. And you'll end up with plenty of it just by roaming around the world.
Exactly. Like, during Halloween, that stuff just sort of flies out of everything.
How much candy do you want?
I had so many of those single-use tonics because I spent a day or like an afternoon just roaming around the Mad King's lair, killing random stuff.
I'm really excited about Path of Fire. Incidentally, like I actually caught up with the story this week, so I've finished Living World seasons 2 and 3, and gotten the what's this called?
Heart of Thorn story.
The Heart of Thorn story done. And wow, does their storytelling improve dramatically over the course of their like vanilla to their expansion to other stuff.
The thing to note is that Heart of Thorns is fully voiced by your character.
Yes, Heart of Thorns is fully voiced by your character, which is kind of interesting. A little weird, but
that's good because I don't think I've heard my character's voice in quite a while now.
Other than the various sounds you make for getting
whenever
buffs.
I find good loot, yeah.
That too.
Urge to Kill Rising. I hear that one a lot.
It's when you get might as a human male.
Gaining adrenaline.
I wish I were more excited about the Mesmer new elite spec, but I'll live.
I'm really curious about the warrior spec.
I guess the thing is like, I'm not super sold on either of the elite specs.
You are using the one you already have.
I was about to say, I am pretty excited to be getting an elite spec I might use.
Man, I'm perfectly fine not using it, but I'm not using Berserker, but
I really do have fun with the silly nonsense I do, but I'm looking forward to having something that doesn't require me to have quite that much APM.
yeah, I can see that.
On the other hand, I'm looking at playing an Elementalist.
I'm also
that's just madness.
that elementalist thing looks so awesome, and
But so complicated.
It's so complicated, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
And you basically have to be thinking a bunch of moves ahead at all times.
I mean, I play a Mesmer.
All you need to do is keep in mind that you're stuck with whatever you pick for the next 8 seconds, at least.
I'm also really excited about Deadeye, the thief one. So I'll have plenty of stuff to be excited about. But like Chronomancer is kind of my ideal Mesmer spec anyway, so I'm not like super sad about it.
Scrapper was very clearly a PvP spec, and very excited to have one that isn't.
So you say that, but I'm looking at making it work in PvE because of a trait it has that is interesting. When you get might, you get quickness.
Wait, what?
When you get over 10 stacks of might, you start getting quickness whenever you get might.
That sounds like nonsense.
So I think there's a Scrapper build that could make that work.
How are you getting that much might?
Elixirs, stacks per.
I can hear the dots from here.
I know you think elixirs are not very good.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it works for you.
There's a shocking amount of things that you can make work in this game, and I think that's really neat.
Or you can be like me and be a really blunt object.
I mean, also a totally reasonable option.
I mean, whatever works.
There are some things that blunt object is really good at.
Break bars.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing.
You know what I'm garbage at as a Mesmer? Mostly? Break bars.
No, you have your own things that you're very good at, like anything that wants to shoot you.
I mean, yes.
That isn't a Mortal Guard Sniper because they cheat.
Yeah, anything that doesn't cheat that wants to shoot me.
Okay. Another thing that I did this week was I installed Legendary Game of Heroes after hearing Grace talk about it several times.
The game with the boringest name.
I don't even understand
it's not Stories, The Path of Destinies.
I don't understand why they named it that name, other than maybe, I don't know, everything else was taken.
So, is this in fact based off of Legendary, the deck builder game?
No, not that I know of.
Are you sure?
I have no idea.
I mean, like, it doesn't specifically say this connection?
No, it's not based on that.
No, it's just it's generic fantasy setting. It's basically like, I don't know, a dungeon crawler where match 3 is your combat system. I
mean, you've also just described the Puzzle and Dragons 3DS game.
Yes, but this, instead of having whatever your guys in Puzzle and Dragons are, you have basically like every generic fantasy hero you could possibly think of, every generic kind of dragon thing, and also like random creatures and people out of myth and legend. So like I have Little Red Riding Hood on my team, and like,
wait, what? This is
okay. Like this is a thing.
Yeah.
Like I have Robin Hood, I have Little Red Riding Hood, I have like, and I've seen people who have Cthulhu, and I'm really jealous of them. I think that was from some sort of event that I had missed, but yeah. They have, I guess they're like core legends that are like the cards that you get to pick from when you start the game, and then you can obtain the other ones in various ways. And they, like, the thing that impressed me about it actually is if you look at the cards, you flip them over to look closely at their stats and things, and there's like pretty significant flavor text for everything, which was shocking. Like I'm sort of slowly piecing together what's going on in this world from the bits and pieces of flavor text on these cards, and I had never in a million years thought that I would care about that at all. So that's been kind of fun. But yeah, Belle, I'm curious, like, what your take on this is.
I've not gotten super far into it, but it's surprisingly fun. It's the mechanics are a little weird. Like you have cards that make up your characters, and like anytime you say match 3 of something, then that powers up your green characters. Or, I mean, like, match 3 greens, and, you know, that powers up your green characters. Match 3 red, that powers up your red characters. It's taken me a bit to get used to the whole, do as many moves as you can in as short period of time as you can to like get off crazy combo attacks.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I really like about this compared to Puzzle and Dragons is that, like, because the combat, like what you just described, is essentially identical, but you have that little timer, and that timer resets when you move a gem, and so you can, if you pause for a moment before you start and kind of plan out things in your head in advance, you can make quite a few moves before that you run out of your timer. So I don't know, like it makes it slightly more rewarding feeling for a match 3 kind of game.
So trying to figure out what is the one thing you can do with this particular match that will get the most results.
Right, that will cascade in a way that will get the best result. Instead, you can look at the screen, you know, like the field as it is right now and say, okay, like I can move a bunch of stuff around and I can clear half the board, and then however it falls after that, you know, other things will happen. But it's sort of more immediately rewarding because you can make a lot of moves in one turn.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an adjustment period to think like that, to where how many rapid fire things can I do and what sequence is the best one that I should do all these in.
Yeah.
Like what is going to let me do more moves in this little timer.
But the other thing that like I'm still sort of amazed by is that I don't run up against the paywall very often. Like there's enough different kinds of things to do in this game, and each of the different kinds of things basically has its own currency to get in the door. So there's sort of energy that determines the main campaign. There's usually an event going on and that has some sort of keys and they respawn separately. There's, you know, like various dungeons to get gold or gems or other things that respawn daily or on like a 12-hour timer. So there's always so many different kinds of things to do that I feel like I can keep playing for a very long time before the game forces me to close it and wait for a while.
Well, that's
Which
honestly
maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know.
That's honestly like why I was looking for something else, because, you know, like Pokemon Go only works if I'm not at home, because I have no Pokemon in my house. Final Fantasy Record Keeper, I only actually really play when there's new characters to get that I don't already have, because I don't have the memory stone or whatever for the characters in my party, so they're all capped at 50. I can't unlock them, and I don't want to change my party, so I'm just going to deal with it. So there's like a limited time that I can actually play that game. For whatever reason, Fire Emblem Heroes hasn't been as sticky as it was with TAM. I think mostly because, like, I just fundamentally don't like tactics games that much.
Yeah, that would be a damper on that one.
Yeah. So yeah, I was looking for other games. Like I downloaded the Sword Art Online mobile game, and I was not a fan.
Wait, what?
There's a Sword Art Online mobile game, and it's sort of...
The next question would be, is it any good? But I guess...
No. I didn't think it was. It's kind of like...
So you might be poor choice to answer that question.
It's this weird, I don't know, mash a bunch of keys at the same time type of game, but with your fingers and on a phone screen.
You're not selling me.
No, it's like, I don't know, it's weird. It kind of reminded me of a like Fruit Ninja-y type thing going on.
Now you're really not selling me.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, I am sure probably if, you know, that was your kind of game, it's a reasonable game, but that's not what I was looking forward to. Like, I was expecting, you know, something along the lines of what I'd already been playing, but with, you know, Sword Art Online characters. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be another game to add to the list of random phone games I play. And the fact that it's like over a year old at this point and still around is also a good thing, because I'd gotten into a game called Dragon Coins and I went to reinstall it, and apparently it's no longer in business.
Yep.
Sega canceled
they killed it a while ago.
I remember you talking about that a while ago.
Yeah, it was like a fun little
Also
game.
remember you talking about you were only logging in to see the daily and you were getting bored.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I was going to play it some more, see if anything changed, but no.
I mean, something changed.
It's still on the Android shop, but when you install it, the servers aren't there anymore.
Oh, sounds like something significant changed then.
Like, I feel like they forgot a step when they were closing the game, which was to remove it from the store.
I mean, that requires paying someone to go through the process of doing it.
They just didn't care that much.
Yeah, why bother?
I mean, they may also have just been like, well, we're completely out of money. Guess that's not going to happen.
But hey, we at least have a new Sonic game that's pretty good from Sega.
Oh man, I'm going to be putting a whole bunch of time into that over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I need to take my Switch downstairs so I can play it in bed. It's really damn good.
Either the special stage they designed is less enraging than the old ones, or I got better at it. One of the two.
I think it's that the Switch controls. I don't know what you're playing it on. I'm playing it on Switch. But like the controls on a modern game controller are way better than the crappy, Sega controller. Like, especially the old school one, the 3-button one, which is what I played with a lot. So, it had one of the worst D-pads ever. I mean, I eventually played it with like the 6-button pad, but it had a very spongy D-pad, which wasn't that much better. But Sonic Mania, like, the levels just have a loving respect for the originals.
I mean, it was made by people who were making basically ROM hacks.
And extremely weird Sonic comics.
Wait, what do you mean extremely weird Sonic comics?
Like, one of the people involved did a lot of... It's... Like, the art style is very VG Cats, but like Sonic webcomics.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if like somebody involved with the original Archie run.
Oh, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, the main person who did really weird stuff, like, took his ball and went home. So he certainly wouldn't be involved.
Because I thought the Archie comics were fantastic when I was a kid.
Those recently ended, I think.
They did.
This is a fairly recent thing.
Really?
Those and the Mega Man both. Yeah, the Sonic one, like, it was the longest running, like, monthly comic when it ended. But yeah, just here in the last couple of months it did.
That was a weird, sprawling story.
I think part of the problem is said weird, sprawling story got suddenly ended and then rebooted on somewhat short notice when the dude who had been writing it forever took his ball and went home. And I get the impression it never recovered from that.
So maybe somebody here would be able to explain this. Sonic the Hedgehog is a story about Sonic the Hedgehog, Tails the Fox, and like Knuckles the Echidna. But the Sonic comics were this story about the Freedom Fighters and Knothole, and Sonic was part of that.
Yeah, Archie Comics invented those characters.
Right. Yeah, right. What was like the Saturday morning cartoon also by the Archie Comics people?
I think
one of them was.
Yeah, there were two different Saturday morning cartoons. I think one was, and then the other was kind of off to the side where it could maybe sort of be connected or not. I don't know. If you're interested in this stuff, the only reason I know anything at all about the Sonic comics is because Chris Sims did a series of articles where he started reading through the Sonic comics and exploring them and seeing, what was up with this stuff. And between his articles and the comments from one particular commenter who knew a lot about this stuff, it was very clearly a wild and crazy ongoing series.
So yeah, I actually started reading the Archie comics on issue 5.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yes.
Way back in the day.
Yes. Yeah. So I started reading issue 5 and I found like the back copy so that I could catch up with the start of the story, and I think I got to about issue 120 before I stopped reading them.
Okay.
So I followed it for a while, and because I also loved the Saturday morning cartoon. But I was like, this is a really cool story. Why aren't these games about all of these sweet characters?
Because mostly those characters were invented by Archie Comics and or the writer of those comics, who actually took a lot of those characters with him when he left.
That would make things really weird.
Yeah. Like, I gather there was a whole Echidna city, and the Sonic comic became very focused on all of the Echidnas and their thing. And then things fell apart between the writer and Archie, and all of those Echidnas basically just kind of like fell into a hole and disappeared.
Yeah, so when I was reading, there was, like, Knuckles was alone on the floating island, but there was this shadowy council of Echidnas constantly watching over him. And, like, eventually, like, bringing him into the fold and, like, having to deal with crazy Echidna conspiracy organizations.
What?
That sought to control the Chaos Emeralds and prevent them from being misused.
I mean, Archie
They
Comics
probably
has a
thought this
history.
was too ridiculous to make it into the game, but they also made Sonic 2006, so I'm not sure.
Archie Comics has a history of taking licensed properties and doing really insane shit with it. Case in point, the Archie Comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic, in which for a while the Turtles were like transporting between realities via a giant like cowhead named Cuddly Cowlick.
What?
Who would pop them into a new reality and spit them out.
Well, so, yeah, speaking of alternate realities...
This is how the Turtles met Archie and the gang. This is the thing that happened.
Like, that was the other thing, was there were constantly alternate realities. Like, a recurring plot was that there was an evil Sonic area. Like, there was an opposite world where evil Sonic and evil freedom fighters existed, and, like, Dr. Robotnik was this kindly old man that they just kept all beating up on. And, like, swapping back and forth between zones and trying to take over. It was a fun comic to read. I was young.
Well, and there was a villain who was a wizard who was actually 3 wizards, and he eventually became king.
Was this an Echidna?
No, he wasn't a particular animal, because the 3 wizards that he was were each a different animal, so he had like elements of all 3 of them.
I wonder if this is the king that came back, because, okay, so when the king finally returned, he was a giant dick.
No, that was the actual king.
Was it?
I think. I'm not entirely clear myself.
It's so,
because again, I've got all this second hand.
It sounds like you are not describing a Final Fantasy plot. We're describing a Kingdom Hearts plot.
Yes.
Well, okay. So here's what happened, and this is sort of when I started checking out. Is like the king comes back and is like a complete jerk, and suddenly all of the heroes that you have been following are now in a like high school anime because he's forcing them to all go to school when they've been like fighting Robotnik for years now. And I was like, this is stupid. This isn't what I want to read. I want to read about awesome adventures and like daring heroics, not high school dramas.
I'm pretty sure this wizard was in one of the cartoons. I'm trying to remember his name. Oh, Ixis Naugus.
Oh, I do recognize that name.
He's a dude who is actually 3 dudes, all fused into one.
Is he 3 kids in a trench coat?
He's the giant... he's Mammoth Mogul. Okay.
No, I think Mammoth Mogul is a different guy.
No. My head hurts.
So,
I don't even know anymore.
I am so very lost, and I used to read this comic.
He is Mammoth Mogul. Like, one of his forms is Mammoth Mogul. And... I had not met Ixis Naugus, but I had seen Mammoth Mogul and Ixis Naugus tied together, like, in the margins of, like, one of the pages they were reading. Like, why is this guy called Ixis Naugus? His name's Mammoth Mogul. This is a mystery for us to solve at a later point.
I don't even know. I just liked running real fast.
Yeah, so he's the fusion of, like, a bat wizard, a rhinoceros wizard, and a crab wizard. And so he's got a horn and a crab claw and a big beard, and I don't know where the beard comes from.
Even Sonic the Hedgehog comics are just insane.
They are madness.
Oh no, I did meet this guy. No, so yeah, this is a different person. Yeah, he was Sonic the Hedgehog 53. So yes, I had met him.
But yeah, at the point that Chris Sims started reading Sonic and started writing the articles about it, Ixis Naugus had just been made king of whatever it is, the city.
Knothole? Or, well, no, Knothole is...
Mobotropolis?
Mobotropolis.
Yeah.
Knothole is the shelter that everyone hides out from Dr. Robotnik.
Like, apparently they had just rescued Mobotropolis from Robotnik and de-roboticized everybody.
Well...
And then Ixis Naugus became king.
Robotnik kind of disappeared because I think Sonic kills him in, like, issue 25.
Oh, he came back.
Oh, does he? Oh, of course he does.
Comics.
As a robot.
Oh, okay.
From an alternate universe.
I don't even know, guys. Can I just have my Sonic back? He runs real fast and he hits things and breaks stuff and is generally a vandal, but we're okay with it. Sometimes he goes into magical rings and suddenly becomes a 3D game. That's Sonic.
This was somebody applying their own story to Sonic, and it mostly worked because there was not a story to Sonic.
No, there really wasn't.
I mean, this sounds like Weird Edge fanfic of Sonic.
Well, I mean, this is where...
basically what it is.
Yeah, it's basically official Sonic fanfic.
This is also where most of the Sonic fanfic comes from.
That too.
Anyway, let's go to something that always makes total sense. You know, Magic the Gathering and their horrible, weird storylines. So, I guess Wizards of the Coast, or whoever is actually driving the bus these days, Hasbro, is going to make a Hearthstone?
I mean, they're making a Hearthstone, but it's actually like Magic rules.
So it's Duels of the Planeswalkers, but with cleaner UI.
Yes. Also, maybe
also,
with,
I miss Duels of the Planeswalkers.
It also might be actual, like, Magic, like, not the Duels of the Planeswalker style Magic.
So, I watched the stream
what was Duels of the Planeswalkers missing from actual Magic other than a bunch of cards?
A bunch of cards. Also, Duels of the Planeswalker has some weird deck construction rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there were also things that you could absolutely do on a table, but Duels of the Planeswalkers wouldn't allow you to do. Like sometimes its system was a little stricter than you could actually get away with in real life.
I mean, they're already, like, showing off some features that they waited a long time to put into Duels of the Planeswalker. Like, Planeswalkers.
I don't think they ever actually made it into Duels of the Planeswalkers.
I don't think so.
So I watched the stream of, like, them talking about it, and two people that I don't recognize their names, but they're probably really important in the streaming world because it sounded like they were.
I know that if you watch the same one I did, Christine Sprinkle is a famous Magic cosplayer.
Okay. But they were people I didn't recognize, but they were playing, and it looked cool. And I liked the idea of having a more automated mode to go through quickly, or that there was like a way you could flip on manual mode where you like manually resolved everything. That way, if you were really concerned about the sequence of events happening just right, because I remember in Duels of the Planeswalkers there were a couple of times where it either went through too quickly, or
like I missed me in terms of resolution was that you couldn't choose which lands to tap to pay generic mana costs.
Yes,
and that would sometimes bite you.
Yeah,
that was a thing.
You definitely can in this game. You pick a card and then you pick the lands that you want to tap for that card. I'm going to be curious. I think you're going to still be able to manually tap lands, which is going to be important.
Yes, you can. The assigning of blockers seemed really cool for determining who took the damage first and so on. It's just like a stack, and you move the one to the top if you want that one to take the damage first.
Duels of the Planeswalkers did let you do that.
So
eventually,
I am curious because I did not see this option. It doesn't look like you can manipulate damage dealt very well, which is such a corner case rule that they might be looking to get rid of it. So right now, you choose the order of blockers, and then starting with the first blocker, you deal damage up to or exceeding their toughness. And the or exceeding their toughness is the tricky part there, right?
What situations is that relevant in?
If somebody double blocks your creature and wants one of them to die, you can assign all of your damage to the other creature, kill only it.
Okay.
Which, again, it's a very corner case rule, and it's a huge gotcha in Magic. So I'm curious if they're going to finally get rid of it. Like, they're talking about getting rid of damage redirection, which we...
That was a gotcha that I did not know.
Yeah. So, Planeswalkers, if you are dealing damage to a player, you can choose to redirect it to a Planeswalker and deal them damage to their loyalty, which is part of, like, the core rules, but is not explicitly made clear on a bunch of cards. So, like, Lightning Bolt can actually deal 3 damage to a Planeswalker, but the cards they have in Magic Arena, they are templating deal 3 damage to target player or Planeswalker.
They have contemplated the wording any target for things that can also damage creatures.
But all in all, I'm really excited because I think I've mentioned a lot of times that while I like playing Magic Online, its UI is garbage. And I don't think
garbage is strong enough language for that UI.
It's probably not.
I'm really curious to see what the implementation ends up being like, and like what additional formats they might support.
I really hope they support Draft.
I hope they support Draft. I hope they support Commander.
Oh, I'm sure they'll support
I don't
Commander.
think they're going to have enough cards initially to do that, though.
Well,
they're not
so
talking about
basically,
bringing the full set in, are they?
They are what it sounded like they were going to do was always support Standard. So that basically Standard would be a rotating set of cards that they support.
My initial guess would be they would probably also support like the Commander release products.
Probably. They're either going to support Commander or they're not.
They're also like what they did with Magic Online is also introduce Magic Online only sets that you could use to get old cards.
Yeah.
They said because of the stupid reserve list.
They said the word free to play, so I don't know what that's gonna mean.
I hope this means that I will be able to purchase drafts for cheaper than $12 a draft. It probably means I won't be able to I bet you won't be able to trade cards.
Probably. Like honestly, I would be okay if they went with a Hearthstone like card crafting system. Like that's actually a really good workaround. Really? I thought it was a great workaround for not being able to trade.
Paid any attention to it in quite some time. I just know people were against that model when it came out originally because they wanted to trade their cards.
Oh, I never liked trading cards. I found it annoying.
There will always be bots to trade with, though.
I assume that in addition to the PC, we will ultimately have like Android, iOS, things like that.
Extremely likely.
That seems to be the form factor.
They're gonna have to tighten up their UI though for the phones because like Hearthstone had to do that.
All right, so I saw something about this that made me just like scratch my head. One of the things I read is that they're going to have their rules engine is driven by machine learning so that it can comprehend any card that Magic design team writes.
That
sounds like madness.
That is the funniest bullshit I've heard anybody write in a long time.
It sounds like
Sam there.
It sounds like Tromple Burbs.
I want to see a picture of the Ancient Aliens guy saying machine learning because like it's apparently now the Magic fix-all.
Yeah,
I doubt that. I mean, like they've done some weird shit in Magic the Gathering sets.
They're about to do some really weird shit.
Well, the thing is, okay, machine learning is just applied statistics, right? I don't want something saying, there's a 50% chance this is what this card means. If I wanted that, I'd be playing 7th edition 40k.
Siri, show me pictures of the Serengeti. Okay, here's pictures of spaghetti.
Yes, from their own, like, ad copy. we want to create a game that can evolve. We created an all-new games rules engine that uses sophisticated machine learning that can read any card we can dream up for Magic.
You can't see me doing this, but I'm side-eyeing it real hard.
Because I'm sure it would do just fine with phasing.
Yeah, no. I'm like, no, that's not what you're doing.
We made an AI that's going to break in 10 minutes.
So,
we made a challenge.
what is it? Humility and opalescence, is it?
Humility and opalescence.
What's it do if you throw those two cards at it?
Those two cards do not exist in Magic Arena.
That's too bad. They probably should. Out of curiosity, what happens if those two cards come up from Magic MTGO?
They resolve correctly. Which is, like, the utter madness.
Everything except humility is a 1/1 with no...
No. It depends on the
depends on the order in which they came in.
Yes. It depends on which enchantment has an older timestamp. P.S. All Magic cards have timestamps. You might not realize this because those are the rules that you are never supposed to interact with. That said, there are some rules interactions that lead to infinites, like automatic infinite loops.
Yes. One of those is called out in the most recent Commander set.
Those in the past, I think they catch those now, but in earlier versions of Mitgo, those would just crash the browser.
I think Savage Hellkite or something like that has a ruling that basically says, if this happens, this repeats infinitely, and you now have a draw. Congrats.
Ridiculous.
I feel like most of
card
them
that says whenever you target a dragon, you can discard target permanent opponent controlled or something. And it points out that if you both only have this dragon, you will only be able to target it, and its triggers will go on the stack infinitely, and you will draw.
You immediately tie the game. Get out.
Go away.
Go
Try
away.
again.
I'm really hoping this ends up being awesome. Because, like,
Me too.
This is basically what I said I was wanting when I was playing a bunch of different other things. It's like, I basically just wanted Magic the Gathering Hearthstone.
Out of curiosity, have you played Eternal?
I have not played Eternal.
That's basically what that is.
But, so the problem is...
It's just not the Magic cards you recognize.
Right. There's the problem. Like, even if it's not a Magic the Gathering card that I necessarily played with, I can see the roots of the things I played with in them, even today. So I don't have the buy-in to another universe that I do in Magic.
So rules and UI and all of that are one thing, but Magic the Gathering legitimately has some of the best card game designers in the world working for them, and it really shows in their set design. Like, their sets... I have played so many other, basically the games that have the exact same rules as Magic, and they just don't feel as good as playing modern Magic.
Yeah, I don't know that I would go so far as to say that Magic does have some of the best card designers in the world. I think there are card games with comparatively better rule sets.
Sure, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, you can design a better card game than Magic, but if you are following Magic's rule set, like Hex or Eternal...
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to beat Magic because they have the best people making Magic cards.
Yes.
I mean, it's like the thing that they can't do legally is always the thing that trips it up. Like, they can't quite copy Magic.
But even... I feel like Hex
really kind of did.
Hex
their first set was basically a Magic core set.
It really was.
Enough so that they had to change some names.
Yeah.
But they didn't change any mechanics.
Hex 100% is using Magic rules.
Yeah.
But even then, the problem is the flavor's not the same. Like blood is black. Like, blood is absolutely black, but I don't like playing blood as much as I like playing black.
Well, there's a number of things there, yeah, and that's all back to card and set design, which is where Wizards is really king.
Yeah, I mean, not that they would ever do this because it would cannibalize their existing market, but I bet that if if Magic were rebooted with the same designers, but like, hey, here's all the lessons we've learned from the past 25 or 30 years, you'd get a really, really great card game out of it.
Yes, but that's for business reasons not going to happen.
Oh yeah, it's never gonna. It would never actually happen, which makes me kind of sad because I think there's a lot of space in the card game. You could create a card game that doesn't cannibalize Magic if you wanted to.
I mean, Hasbro has created other card games. They don't involve wizards in them because they really want to keep that brand purely focused on Magic.
Yeah, and it's why Wizards sees as much churn as it does.
Yeah.
And long story short is it looks super interesting, and I'm interested, especially since I appear to be going through a Magic phase right now, or at least am back to buying Magic. We have anything else we want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I think we're good.
Cool. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.
Good night.